let's talk about the rights. So these are rights that a customer has, again, it should say consumer. We'll use the defined term, under the CCPA. So the right to know all data collected by a business on them twice a year free of charge. You want to talk a little bit about this, Sonali?
Oh, sure. So from GDPR, we know that data subjects, the entire focus of GDPR was to provide rights to a data subject. And in GDPR, data subject is anyone who is living, right? It doesn't even cover the deceased entity. So in here, we have seen that devices, households, and personal, people are covered. And CCPA talks about consumer rights. So the entire focus is consumer rights. And the first line is, your information is none of their business. So it is your information, you have to protect it, and the law gives you a lot of rights. As you can see, we have listed 10 of them here for you. But essentially what the law is saying is, any individual who is from California has a right to know what data has been collected, what data has been shared about him, what data has been collected from a third party, what data is collected from himself. So he has a right to know what information a business has on him. So it is about about the individual and their rights to know what data that the company has. And of course, they have a right to ask the company to show what they have on him twice a year free of cost. So a company cannot deny a California resident. Yes, please?
Yeah, is it the raw data or is it the type of data collected? So is it
everything.
Location data or it's every GPS location?
Every location, everything.
Piece. I think the actual term they use is piece.
Piece, yeah.
Which
every
is, of course,
piece of data.
That's a technical term, piece of data.
Every piece of data that has been collected. Yeah. So, it is good to hear that a consumer has all these rights, but the challenge is on the business side, how to provide that information, how to make sure that you have everything and you respond to that information within that stipulated time period. That is bigger challenge. Yes, please.
So my question is, have you heard anything so far? This is later in the presentation. Just say, I'll get to it. I present myself as, hey, I'm Michael Jones. Yes. Do you have any information on me? How's the law addressing validation and verification?
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
That's the big. Is that okay with you?
Of course, of course. So
we do get to it later.
It is the biggest challenge that every company is going to face so far. How do you verify that the person calling or asking for information is from California or not? If your system has a drop down which says that provide your state, and if a consumer says that, yes, I am from California, then it is possible at least to validate he is coming from California. But tomorrow, anyone can do that. I can say that, okay, I am from California. How does that matter? And on the other hand, the companies cannot, or rather they do not have a valid process or thought process to confirm that the person coming in is a valid consumer from California or not. So that is the biggest challenge that everyone is going to face, and of course there is no guidance from the AG so far. So we will have to wait and watch.
But that is one of the areas that is expressly put in. There's kind of a laundry list of AG will come to the rescue. That's one of them. Like the processes for verifying, but. Again, you can build it going forward, but what do you do with the 500,000 records or whatever it is you've got in your database where all you have is an email address, maybe? Like, you don't necessarily capture physical addresses, or if you do, they move. Everybody moves. People move, right? And so the Act actually requires, it only requires responding to a verifiable request, right?
Verifiable request.
How do I verify?
Yeah,
correct.
That is the challenge.
And do you want to go out on the limb and say, well, I can't really verify, so I don't have to respond to you?
Didn't we have the same problem though with so SB 1386 came out in 2002, and it was the same thing, right? It was a breach reporting law that came out from California. It was the first of its kind in the United States, which triggered all 49 other follow-up ones. But it was the same thing, right? Because it's a data breach of it was a California resident.
Yep.
So it's almost the same.
Yeah, it sounds the same.
Because you had lawyers basically creating these, or business people creating the law. Right?
The law.
Not technical people that can actually get technical terms.
And
Yeah.
what happened? You solve for that.
Yeah, 50,
You
50
assume,
different- yeah.
you just assume that everybody lives in California. That's
That is one way to
I mean,
deal
that's
with
how we
it.
did GDPR. I mean,
Yes.
ultimately GDPR, like for our side, like we took European data and we split it off from North American data, and we effectively created two different repositories at our company.
Yeah, but were you able to do that for all your data, or was that on a going forward basis?
Yeah, we went
Yeah.
EU, everybody else.
Yeah.
For us.
So either you treat everyone as California residents and
We have
protect
to use
everyone.
Salesforce because of GDPR.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course you do.
Absolutely. So there will be some changes. Another thing is, it's a catch-22 situation. If you want to verify that a person is from California or not, and if you ask him, give me your, license details. So you are acquiring even more PII, which might not be required. So, these are the situations or challenges that everyone is going to face, and everyone will have to share their experiences, how they are dealing with it, and then come up with a solution.
I think,
The concern I've got is how do I avoid now going into a data breach situation because I'm trying to fulfill the requirements under this law.
right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm going to avoid data breach and providing it to a guy like me who's saying I'm Michael Jones and I'm really not. And
You've just stolen my identity, right?
Exactly. But the law says I can get
Right.
my information. I'm saying I'm Michael Jones. So if you don't have an account on Michael Jones, but Michael Jones has actually browsed your website, you might have some
Cookies.
How do you even track that?
Well, and you raise it, I hadn't thought about it until right now, and that's the sign of a good conversation, I think. So we'll talk about it. Reasonable security, right? Because
Yes.
you're professionals, right? That's the standard, and that's really interesting. We need to talk about that. But let's just say that you don't have a good, solid verification mechanism in place in your company, and you're taking the position that everybody lives in California. It's just, and I suspect with a lot of the clients that we have, it would be too cost prohibitive to try to build a system to actually do that. It's cheaper to just, okay, you got us. But you raise a good point. What if you do that, and then by doing that, you're exposing yourself to liability, potential liability, for a breach, in a way that's that's not in a way, that would be an unauthorized disclosure. I mean, you could make that argument. And what if, and I know that under reasonable security, verification, well, I mean, it is a kind of authentication. You could make the argument that you have breached, you now have a data breach situation because you didn't have
A proper verification method.
process. And then we'll get to that, then the class action lawyers can get a hold of you, right? That's the other big scary thing. You probably have heard about this, right? So with the GDPR, you do have, a private citizen can sue you under the GDPR, but they can't sue you, as far as I know, on a class-wide basis. So the good news is the amendment that was pending, there were several amendments. There was an amendment that would actually make the CCPA scarier. And it would allow a citizen, a consumer, to sue for any breach of the CCPA. Like, you didn't have a toll-free number, you didn't have the button, you didn't, whatever it is, anything. That died. So that's good. You still have the private right of action, but it's for a breach of security only. That's still, we'll talk about some of the penalties for that. But that is probably the thing that is scaring people the most. It's not so much the regulatory action of the Attorney General, because, you can come up with a consent decree. I mean, it's bad, it's bad PR, but it's that private right of action, I think, that's scaring people. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
Can we move on?